Hey everyone, welcome to the endless series of videos where ChatGPT debunks all of Trump's false claims. Now I know it sounds impossible because let's be real, he just never stops. But maybe, just maybe, there'll be a day when we finally leave no false claim behind. For now though, it's all just for fun. So here's how it's gonna go. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to break down as many of Trump's false claims as we can handle for today, get its take on why he said them, and even consider how his supporters might view those claims. I mean, you've probably heard it before, like the media twists his words, or context matters and all of that. So yeah, ChatGPT will take all of that into account as well. Honestly, I did have a tough time tracking down his actual quotes. I literally watched hours upon hours of interviews and speeches to pull it all together. So if you want to reward all of my suffering, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now while you're watching. And if you know someone who would find this interesting or impactful, be sure to share the video with them. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into it.
But one thing I can promise you this, I will always tell you the truth.
And here we are. Now I'm setting it up to debunk all of Trump's false claims throughout his political career, and it'll go one by one, of course, with no specific topic, just in a random order. And yes, to keep things fair and avoid any room for misinterpretation, I've asked it to always consider his supporters' views. And if ChatGPT finds their perspective reasonable, it'll let us know and may even justify Trump when it makes sense. As always, the goal is to be clear, straightforward, unbiased, and call a spade with no sugarcoating, just short answers, accurate info, and no fluff. Alright, let's begin the first claim for today, and here it is. 30,000 illegal migrants were put into a town of 50,000 people in Springfield, Ohio.
You take a look at Springfield, Ohio, where 30,000 illegal migrants were put into a town of 50,000 people. No place can withstand that.
Springfield, Ohio has a population of about 60,000, and no evidence supports Trump's assertion that 30,000 undocumented migrants were relocated there. Local officials and community leaders have denied any such event, stating it simply didn't happen. A relocation of this size would require significant resources and coordination, and it would be impossible to carry out without drawing substantial public and media attention, none of which exists. Trump supporters might say he was emphasizing broader concerns about immigration overwhelming small towns, but this claim doesn't highlight a real problem. It invents one. By presenting fabricated numbers, Trump sidesteps genuine issues and replaces them with fear-driven rhetoric. Using baseless claims like this undermines meaningful discussions about immigration and shifts focus away from real challenges. It wasn't an error, it was a deliberate attempt to stir up emotions and reinforce a misleading narrative. Good, and let's be clear moving forward for anyone who wants to justify these kind of claims, if Trump says something specific like numbers, names, or anything else, it shouldn't be interpreted as something broader or abstract, like he meant this when he said that. It simply doesn't work that way. So when he claimed there are 30,000 illegal migrants, he was just flat out lying. Alright, now let's get to the next claim. The murder rate in the United States is the highest it's been in 47 years.
And yet the murder rate in our country is the highest it's been in 47 years, right? Did you know that? 47 years. I'd say that in a speech and everybody was surprised because the press doesn't tell it like it is. It wasn't to their advantage to say that. But the murder rate is the highest it's been in, I guess, from 45 to 47 years.
In 2017, the murder rate was nowhere near the highest in 47 years. FBI data for 2016 showed a rate of 5.3 murders per 100,000 people, far below the peak of 10.2 in 1980. While the rate had risen slightly compared to previous years, the claim grossly misrepresented the data. Trump supporters might argue he was simply emphasizing a legitimate concern about rising crime, but this wasn't just an exaggeration. It was a blatant distortion of facts. The FBI's crime data is publicly accessible, and as president-elect, Trump had every resource to verify the truth. This wasn't a mistake, it was a calculated move to create fear and bolster his law and order agenda. Misinforming the public on such a critical issue undermines trust and fosters unnecessary panic. When a leader deliberately skews facts to fit a narrative, it's not just misleading, it's a disservice to the very people they are supposed to serve. Alright, he said the rate was the highest in 47 years, and it simply wasn't. Got it. Now, let's move on to the next one. Mexico is going to pay for the wall.
And Mexico's going to pay for the wall. People say, oh, how are you going to get Mexico to pay? A politician cannot get them to pay. I can.
Mexico never provided direct funding for the construction of a border wall. During the campaign, Trump made it clear that Mexico would pay in an explicit, straightforward manner, often repeating the promise to rally his supporters. Once in office, however, Trump changed his tune, suggesting that Mexico would indirectly pay through trade agreements like the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. No credible analysis supports the claim that USMCA led to Mexico covering any part of the wall's cost. Trump supporters might argue that the promise was a broader reflection of his commitment to immigration reform and border security, but this wasn't framed as a symbolic gesture. It was presented as a direct and specific pledge. The truth is that U.S. taxpayers, not Mexico, covered the cost, with Trump diverting billions from military budgets to finance the wall. This wasn't a misunderstanding or hyperbole, it was a central promise of Trump's campaign, and its failure to materialize makes this a clear and deliberate falsehood. So, not only did Mexico not pay for the wall directly, but they didn't pay indirectly either. And on top of that, you paid for it. What a scam, don't you think? Alright, let's not waste another second and get straight to the next one, and here it is. Millions of votes were cast illegally in the swing states alone.
Millions of votes were cast illegally in the swing states alone. And if that's the case, the results of the individual swing states must be overturned, and overturned immediately. And everybody knows, without going much further, and they've seen the evidence, but they don't want to talk about it, what a disaster this election was. A total catastrophe.
There is no credible evidence to support the assertion that millions of illegal votes were cast in swing states during the 2020 presidential election. Comprehensive investigations conducted by bipartisan election officials, the Department of Justice, led by Trump's own Attorney General Bill Barr, and independent audits across key states found no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Trump's legal team filed over 60 lawsuits challenging the results, and nearly all were dismissed due to lack of evidence, including by judges appointed by Trump himself. Additionally, recounts and audits in battleground states like Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona confirmed the accuracy of the election results. Trump supporters may argue that anomalies or irregularities in the voting process merit scrutiny, while isolated incidents occur in any election. There is no factual basis for claiming millions of fraudulent votes, an accusation that inflates minor issues into baseless conspiracy. This claim was a deliberate falsehood aimed at undermining public trust in the electoral process and overturning the legitimate results of the election. Well, here we go again, the classic claims about the 2020 elections. We just can't go without those, right? Oh, and by the way, I've already asked ChatGPT if those elections were rigged in one of my previous videos, and it broke that down pretty well. Just a reminder, that video is on the channel, so you can check it out anytime you like. Now, let's move on to the next claim. They can even print ballots. They get the same paper, the same machine, nothing special.
They can even print ballots. They get the same paper, the same machine, nothing special. They get the same paper, the same machine, they print ballots.
Trump claimed that individuals were printing counterfeit ballots using the same paper and machines as official ones, a statement made in the context of his broader allegations of election fraud. Election officials use highly secure ballot paper, often embedded with unique features like barcodes, watermarks, or specialized ink. These safeguards ensure authenticity and prevent fraud. Moreover, each ballot is uniquely tied to registered voters, making mass fraud through printing nearly impossible. Investigations by the FBI and state election authorities, including during the 2020 election, have found no credible instances of such large-scale ballot counterfeiting. Some Trump supporters argue that even the possibility of ballot printing raises valid concerns about election security. They often distrust assurances from officials or the media, believing loopholes could exist. While their concerns highlight the need for transparent election processes, Trump's claim exceeds realistic vulnerabilities and misleads his audience. This statement was not only false, but also an intentional exaggeration designed to fuel doubts about election integrity. Well, the 2020 election again. Alright, the claim is false, but now let's ask for the next one, and here it is. We took in $450 billion from tariffs on China.
We took in $450 billion with my tariffs from China. Not one other president took in 10 cents. If I didn't do what I did with tariffs to China, I don't even think we'd be sitting here right now.
During his efforts to highlight the success of his trade war with China, Trump claimed that tariffs on Chinese goods generated $450 billion directly from China, portraying it as a major financial victory. In reality, the Trump administration's tariffs on Chinese imports generated approximately $80 billion in revenue from 2018 to 2021, according to Treasury Department data. This revenue was paid primarily by U.S. importers and passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices, not by China itself. The figure of $450 billion is vastly exaggerated and unsupported by any credible data. Trump supporters might argue that tariffs were an effective strategy to hold China accountable for unfair trade practices and protect American industries. Many view tariffs as a bold step in confronting China's economic policies. However, claiming that $450 billion was collected directly from China is not only inaccurate, but also misrepresents how tariffs work. Well, I think we need a special word for this kind of over-the-top exaggeration. I mean, from 80 to 450 billion? What kind of jump is that? Alright, let's see what else ChatGPT has in store for us. She, Kamala Harris, was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir.
This claim is false and misleading. Kamala Harris has always identified as both black and Indian American. Her mother is of Indian descent and her father is Jamaican, and she has publicly embraced both sides of her heritage throughout her life and career. Harris attended Howard University, a historically black college, and has actively participated in the black community. Suggesting that she turned black for political gain is not only baseless, but also a divisive statement designed to question her authenticity. From a Trump supporter's perspective, some may argue that Harris emphasizes her black identity more frequently in public settings, particularly during moments of political significance, which could give the impression of selective identification. However, this perspective overlooks her lifelong involvement in the black community and her consistent acknowledgement of both her Indian and black roots. Ultimately, this claim cannot be justified. It disregards the reality of her dual heritage and her long-standing connection to both communities, presenting a distorted narrative for political purposes. Got it. Kamala Harris did not suddenly turn black. Thank you, ChatGPT. Now, we've got a couple more claims to go through today, and I'll be asking about the next one in just a moment. But before we move on, now is the perfect time to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Your engagement is the best way to reach more people and helps me keep publishing new videos every single week. Thanks so much, and now let's get back to the chat. So ChatGPT, please go on with the next false claim, and here it is. We built 571 miles of wall.
I mean, we did things with the border that nobody could have done, including we built 571 miles of wall, and that wall worked. Then I got
During Trump's presidency, the administration completed 452 miles of border barriers, not 571 miles as he claimed. Most of this effort involved replacing existing outdated fencing with more modern and secure structures. Out of the total, only about 47 miles were constructed in areas where no barriers previously existed. The claim of 571 miles implies entirely new wall construction, which significantly misrepresents the reality. Trump supporters might argue that upgrading old barriers was a critical step in enhancing border security, and in some cases it did improve effectiveness. However, portraying these upgrades as building 571 miles of wall deliberately inflates the accomplishment to suggest a transformative achievement that didn't occur. The replacement of existing fencing is not equivalent to constructing an entirely new wall. This exaggeration not only distorts the truth, but also undermines the credibility of legitimate accomplishments. It's an attempt to oversell what was actually done, making the claim not only misleading, but unequivocally false. Alright, the wall is not as simple as it sounds now, is it? But only 47 miles from scratch? I mean, it seems like he was talking about an entirely new wall. Well, anyway, the claim is false, and let's move on to the next one. In Pennsylvania, they had hundreds of thousands of more votes than they had people voting.
In Pennsylvania, they had hundreds of thousands of more votes than they had people voting. What's that all about? What's that all about?
This is completely false and has been debunked repeatedly. The official election data from Pennsylvania shows no such discrepancy. The number of ballots cast in the 2020 election aligns with the number of registered voters, as confirmed by state election officials, independent audits, and court reviews. The origin of this claim appears to be either a gross misrepresentation of data or a deliberate attempt to mislead. Audits and investigations have thoroughly debunked this assertion, and no evidence has ever been presented to support it. If this were true, it would have been exposed during the extensive legal challenges following the election. It wasn't, because it's simply not real. While some Trump supporters might use this claim to reinforce their narrative of election fraud, it has no factual basis. It's not just untrue, it's an outright fabrication. An outright fabrication. Got it, ChatGPT. There's no evidence, which means the claim is an absolute lie. Now, to give ChatGPT a break and avoid being restricted for too many messages, let's ask for the last false claim of the day. And here it is. Where we have a wall, by the way, nobody's coming through. Practically nobody.
Where we have a wall, by the way, nobody's coming through, practically nobody. We built the wall that everybody has been dreaming about in terms of law enforcement for many years.
By the time of this interview, U.S. Customs and Border Protection was reporting tens of thousands of illegal border crossings each month, even in areas with new or upgraded barriers. People were breaching the wall using ladders, cutting tools, and tunnels. The assertion that nobody, or practically nobody, was coming through the wall contradicts both Border Patrol data and real-world evidence. Some Trump supporters may argue that the wall has reduced crossings in certain areas, and there's truth to that. It has slowed down illegal activity in spots. However, claiming near total effectiveness is misleading. Breaches were still happening regularly, and the wall has not proven to be the near impenetrable barrier Trump described. This statement doesn't just oversell the wall's success, it distorts the facts, leaving the public with a false impression of its effectiveness. Alright, great. Well, I think that's enough for today, but what do you think? Did you like it? Was there any claim that surprised you? Or maybe you just don't agree that some of these claims are false? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments down below. But don't go anywhere, and also make sure to click on this video to find out what ChatGPT thinks about Trump's tariffs and what it predicts for the US economy under his leadership. Thanks for watching, click on that pop-up, and I'll be waiting for you there in just a moment.